have never understood football, ever in my life. Anyone else here a little confused about all the rules? Okay, and I've mostly refused to understand, and I think this is why. When I was in middle school and high school, football was kind of the cool thing that the cool kids did, and I was not one of the cool kids. I did not go but to maybe one football game in the entirety of my high school career, and I did not enjoy it. And even as an adult, I still don't understand. One time, Blake and I got tickets from somebody at my church in Indianapolis to go to a Colts game, which we did, and I was very confused about how it was inside. You know, they have a dome there in Indianapolis. I'm like, this is a sports game. You're supposed to be outside. But no, we were inside, and Blake tried to explain the rules to me, but I just can't do it. Football is maybe one of the more complicated of the sports. I saw a meme on Facebook this week. I shared it on my Facebook page talking about the Super Bowl, and it said, are you team halftime, game time, or snack time? All right, anybody here snack time? That's me, yep. Halftime, game time. Oh, we've got a lot of football people here. I guess I should have added commercial time too, because I know that's something. Yep, lots of people are into that. Well, it made me think both my experiences as a high schooler, trying to fit in, trying to be cool, and that meme. What time are we living in, and what are the values that guide our lives? Once you're out of high school, still there are the things that are cool to do, or the things that we're taught to be, and the things that we're taught not to be. And as for the time we're living in, well, it feels like mostly busyness. Our lives are full to the brim, and even if they're not, we're told by the culture to make the most of every minute and second. We're supposed to be productive all the time. We're supposed to make the most of our lives, which, okay, is good, but we're told that we need to do more, to be more, to achieve more, have more. And yet, our lives can be so full, and we can feel still empty. It's like if you're full of ice cream, but then you get hungry because, you know, it was just sugar. We live in a world where our value is determined by our achievement, our productivity, all the things that seem good, all the things that our culture says are good. But God moves to a different time. God moves to a different set of values. Not cool or uncool, not even halftime, game time, or snack time, although I think God did give us snack time as a great gift. But God has a time all of God's own. We live in what the Greeks called chronos, the chronos time, which is flat and linear, our time where we are so busy. But God operates under kairos time, God's time. And today, as we heard in the reading, Jesus is on a flat place. Okay, we're in Luke's gospel, and this reading in Matthew, if you were in Matthew's reading, it would be the Sermon on the Mount. You might have heard it before, maybe not. But Jesus presents a list of blessing and woes, which you may know as the Beatitudes. Luke's version is less well-known than Matthew's. I think it's a little harder to deal with those woes. Matthew has 9+ blessings, but Luke balances 4 blessings, 4 woes, or 4 warnings. And I don't know about you, but they're a little hard to hear. Is it bad that we have money? Is it bad that we are happy? Is God going to send woe upon us? And what about the blessings? What do we make of those? How is it that one can be happy and poor, or happy and hungry? It surely is not a good thing to be hungry or poor. Well, these prescriptions that Jesus is saying are not really prescriptions at all, but descriptions. Jesus is telling us what God's kingdom is like, what God's time is like, God's values. Somehow, somewhere, the poor and the hungry are honored. Not that it's good to be hungry or poor. God doesn't wish that on people, but instead, those people, who are often the people that we ignore or reject or say, well, they should have made better decisions, those are the people whom God honors. And as for those who hear the woes, well, maybe think about this from Eugene Peterson, who wrote The Message, which is a paraphrase of the Bible. This is how he wrote up those woes. He says, "It's trouble ahead if you think you have it made, but what you have is all you'll ever get. And it's trouble ahead if you're satisfied with yourself. Yourself will not satisfy you for long. And it's trouble ahead if you think life's all fun and games. There's suffering to be met, and you're going to meet it. There's trouble ahead when you live only for the approval of others, saying what flatters them, doing what indulges them. Popularity contests are not truth contests. Look how many scoundrel preachers were approved by your ancestors. Your task is to be true, not popular." So it's not that those who have are immediately subject to woe, but I think what Eugene Peterson is getting at with this paraphrase is that Jesus is giving a warning to those who have. If you come out on the good side of our culture's value system, just watch out, because that isn't all there is to life. God's ways are different than our ways. God's time, God's values are opposite. In the 1990s, here's a football story. I'm not really going to get it, but I'm going to do it anyway. The Bills, any Bills fans out there? I don't know. The Bills were 1 point down with 8 seconds left in the Super Bowl. It was a good game. And the kicker came out for a 46-yard field goal. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, the game was all up to him, right? Okay? It was the winning kick. And 1 point down, remember, this could have been it. But poor guy, he missed. Can you imagine how that would have felt? And when the Bills got back to Buffalo, there were 30,000 fans there to welcome them back. Now, when your team loses, you can be sad. That happens, right? I do know that much about sports. And so who would have expected what happened next? That this crowd gathered to welcome their poor losing team back and their poor kicker. They chanted, "We want Scott." That was the kicker. "We want Scott." He reluctantly came to the podium there, and the crowd went wild with joy. He cried and said it was some of the most love that he's ever felt. The crowd not only let go of or forgave that unfortunate missed shot, but they lifted him up. They loved him. That's God's time. That's God's value, a time when God's kingdom comes through, the kingdom that Jesus talks about in the Beatitudes, where things are reversed. For God works beyond halftime, beyond snack time or game time, but in kingdom time, a time that moves to values that we can't quite grasp, but we get glimpses here and there of that time that Jesus talks about, when the low will be lifted up and the mighty brought down, so that all will be on a level place. And so this week, Let us look for God's time. Let us slow down. When we live in the time of busyness, we don't have room in our lives to see God's time. Now, make no mistake, God will always break into our lives when we really do need it. God will get God's message across, but there is more opportunity to meet with God, to have those God moments when we slow down. Think, too, this week, where in your life are you out of sync with God's time and values? Where could you get in sync? Where could you honor the lowly, the mourning, those who are despised and rejected? And finally, maybe ask someone, maybe even your family members at dinner, where have you seen God recently? Most likely it will be in small places, lowly places. So those are your invitations for the week. Slow down to look for God's time. Ponder, where in your life are you out of sync with God's time? And ask someone, where have you seen God recently? Now, another invitation to get in sync with God's time is through the gift of creation. And so I invite Jackie Gerard forward to share a minute with us.